Welcome back to That's Church. I'm Ashley, here with my sister Emilie. We're Mormon women exploring various religions and spiritualities. Join us.
Hey everyone, this is Emilie Call. Today's episode is a little bit different than normal and also a little different than we originally planned. Unfortunately, my sister Ashley couldn't join us this time due to the exciting but demanding process of purchasing and renovating her new home in Sugar House. We'll definitely miss her insights today. However, I am so grateful to have had my good friend of 14 years, Tristin Duncan, step in as the substitute. Tristin has been such a blessing to this conversation, and she's actually the one who introduced me to the Heart of a Woman retreat. She first heard about it through the Leading Saints podcast and attended the retreat herself. After her incredible experience, she encouraged me to join her on her second visit, which I am so glad I did. Unfortunately, once again, due to some technical issues, her audio wasn't usable, so we had to edit her out, but don't worry. We still have an amazing discussion ahead, and our editing job was pretty dang good. Today, we're joined by two incredible women, Celeste Jensen and Melanie Meszaros. Celeste and Melanie are a mother-daughter team and the co-founders of the retreat Heart of a Woman, a truly transformative experience inspired by the teachings of John and Stacy Eldridge. Both Celeste and Melanie are deeply motivated by Terrell and Fiona Givens as well. They even sell some of their books at the retreat. Celeste has dedicated her entire adult life to ministering to women, helping them recognize their divine identity as daughters of a king. As a certified life coach, she's been speaking and teaching about building a closer relationship with God for nearly 2 decades. Her passion is to guide women in uncovering who they are and turning their hearts toward their Creator. Melanie brings her wealth of experience as a wife, mother, grandmother, and certified professional coach. With a master's in education and a heart for music, she has spent her life empowering women and couples to enhance their lives and relationships. Melanie's co-founding role at Heart of a Woman allows her to help women restore their feminine hearts and reconnect with God in profound ways. These women both are truly incredible. Before we dive in, a quick note you'll want to know. Be sure to listen to the end of the episode where we will share a special discount code for $50 off registration for the upcoming retreat in October, as well as information on how to apply for a scholarship if needed. So make sure you listen to that. They do not do discounts like this. This is a one-time thing and will only last for 14 days from today. So make sure you listen and take advantage of that. I'm so excited to dive into today's conversation with Celeste and Melanie. Let's get started. Thank you so much, Melanie and Celeste, for coming on our podcast. We are just overjoyed to hear from you. My sister is out right now. She is renovating her house and just needs a minute. Let's just start by taking us to the beginning. Melanie, you started all of this, right? So tell us what inspired Heart of a Woman and just how did it all begin?
Well, I have to take you back before the start of Heart of a Woman. My husband heard about 2 professional speakers that were looking for a business manager marketer. And he came home and said, "This job is for you." And I said, "I'm not looking for a job." And he said, "Well, this job is for you. You need to apply." So I applied and I went and met these 2 crazy guys. And one of them was Doug Nielsen, who is also a professional therapist. I didn't want to work. I didn't want the job, but they offered it to me on the spot. And I can remember driving home and having this conversation with God. I don't want this job. I don't want to work. What am I supposed to do about this? And the feeling that hit my heart so strongly was, you need to take this job because there's something that you need to do later. And here is where you're going to learn how to do this.
Wow.
Having no idea what that would be. Well, about 5 years later, Doug walked into the office. At this time, A Warrior Heart, which is the male version of Heart of a Woman, had done 2 boot camps. And the men there had just clamored for something for their wives, something that would be similar, something that would offer them the transformational experience that A Warrior Heart had offered them. Doug walked into the office one day and he said, "The men want this for the women, and you're doing it." I said, "This is so far beyond me, so far beyond my capacity." And he said, "No, it isn't. And you can do this, and we'll support you." So one of the other men, Rob Chittister, his wife Tina, was one of the founders. Abby BNS, one of my friends, was one of the founders. And we went to Colorado to experience John and Stacy Eldridge's captivating retreat and learn what we were doing, what we should do. And we started the process in January, and we did our first retreat June 6th of 2010. 16 women came to that retreat. We hosted it at a luxury home. And I had no idea uh, the transformational power that women would experience. I was just blown away, and I was so humbled by that. Celeste came the second time. We did 3 retreats within 1 year. And then Abby and Tina stepped out of the picture, and it felt too much for me. 18 months later, the men came to me again and said, we're here. We're going to do your registration. We're going to do your website. You put a team together, but Heart of a Woman has to happen. So we put an all call out to alumni and said, who wants to participate? And 6 women stepped forward. The next retreat was held 4 months later. That was the first time we could go to Big Canyon. And we had 32 women at that time. And you've been to Big Canyon and you see the size of the yurts, and our presentation space was one of those yurts with all of the beds in it.
Oh,
It
really?
was so teeny and
Interesting.
close and intimate. It was really fun.
That's so
And
cute.
as their space has grown, we've been able to grow. And so now we host retreats twice a year at Big Canyon Ranch in Wanship, Utah. And we have between 80 and 120 women come every time.
Wow, so amazing. I love it, and it's just absolutely an incredible retreat. It really is life-changing, I think, for so many people, for so many women. I love too that people saw the potential in you. I have ADHD, and I always want to do everything. Like I'm the one to be like, I think I'm going to accomplish this, and I have like these big dreams and goals, and people are like, I don't think so. And I'm like, well, I'll show you. But I love that you weren't even seeking it. Like that's kind of foreign to me because I'm always the one seeking it. I love that you weren't even looking for a job or looking to do anything in that realm, and people saw the potential and the talent in you, which is just so cool. And you are like, being around you, you just have this beautiful, calm energy that I think just makes everyone feel so welcome and comfortable and loved. So it's very clear that you are definitely the right person for this.
Thank you. I'm really touched. You've brought me to tears. We don't ever see ourselves in the way that other people see us. And so that is truly not the way I see myself, but I'm so grateful if that's the way that other people feel in my presence, because that's what I would want them to feel in my presence. But you remember how at retreat we always say God's plan for you is his story for you is larger than your story for yourself.
Mm,
That is definitely true.
so true. Yeah, I believe that. I've heard a few different ways of people explaining what this retreat, and my sister calls it Jesus Camp. And then I've also heard people call it girls camp, which it totally is. Like I've thought about that before. Like we need girls camp as adults, and I feel like this is the closest thing that I've come to um for that. So I love it. I love girls camp.
I think
Yeah.
women seek relationship with one another, and women of faith are right now longing to gather together as women and to share what's in common. There is so much divisiveness in this world. Um, but women of faith don't want that divisiveness. And so they're wanting to gather together and look at all of the things that they have that are the same, and the things that we share in common, and the ways that we can bless and strengthen one another. And then we go out from this Jesus camp or girls camp or retreat, whatever you want to call it. And women have more influence in the world than we ever give ourselves credit for. And so the ripple effect when somebody comes home from retreat is so impactful in their own lives, in their relationships, in their family, in their neighborhoods, in their faith communities, in their communities. Look at what you girls are doing. You're not trying to do, you're doing this and taking this out into the world and helping people of many faiths come to have an appreciation and maybe even a little holy envy for one another.
Yes, that's our goal. And mostly it's our goal for ourselves. Like, we love that people are coming along, but we just have such a desire to know people in it, to know the differences and also know the similarities. And so we just love it. And then we love, and it's absolutely a huge bonus that people are along the ride with us. So it's great, and great work that you're doing as well, of course, in that same realm. So Celeste, you obviously are right alongside your mom. You're very involved in the retreats. Can you kind of like break it down for us and explain what people can expect in these 3 days in the mountains with women, and tell us some of the activities and experiences people can expect?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to break it down, like the mechanics of it, but then also like the spiritual side of it. So I'm going to talk
Love
more
it.
mechanics first.
Okay.
Our retreat is held, like my mom mentioned, in May and October up in Wanship, and it's on over 1,000 acres of wooded mountaintop. And so, if anybody loves nature and appreciates nature and doesn't want to cook for themselves, just come for those two reasons alone.
The no cooking thing got me. That's where I was like, sign me up, Tristan.
Yeah, coming home and preparing my own food is always one of the worst parts of leaving. But all of our women come up on a Thursday morning, and the first thing that they do is they check in and get assigned to a room. And we have two different places where people sleep. There's a yurt. So that's like a glamping tent. So if you wanted to go glamping, this is your opportunity too. And then there's a little bit of space in a lodge as well. And both places have bunk beds, and they have bathrooms and heating and windows that you can open if you get hot in the night. So temperature regulation is pretty good. And the beds are relatively comfortable if you bring your own mat to wear on top of the mat that they provide. Because usually they host teenagers, and teenagers have really low standards of what their beds need to be like. And women
True.
have elevated theirs a little bit. But we do have people question, can I bring my CPAP machine? Is that going to be okay? And yeah, there's outlets and everything for that. So once they get settled in, we invite them over to our big space. It's called the event barn. And if you can picture walking into a big open barn, like maybe one that people host weddings in, half of it is dedicated to food space, and the other half is dedicated to presentation space. And that presentation space becomes very sacred space. It's cushy chairs there and a lot of opportunities to hear from women who are being really raw, authentic, and honest about their experience with God. And then around the rest of the facility are the rest of the activities that we do. There's soccer field and a basketball court that you can play pickleball on. There's hiking trails. There's a swing that's 2 stories tall that you buckle into a 5-point harness,
So fun.
and they pull
So
a
fun.
ripcord on you and have you swing, and you usually scream for the first half down, and yeah, and it's scary and fun and thrilling, and we have our open space where we'll do guns on one of the days, and then there's a beach area. They've built this pond that is so cool. You can kayak on it and paddleboard on it. They brought in all this sand, and there's this little hammock village so you can lounge like you're on the beach, and they have the Adirondack chairs. We also have a yurt that is our yoga yurt, and so now we just call it our yogurt,
Oh,
and and that's where we'll do our
cute.
yoga and our guided meditation. Uh, and there's a big, beautiful cross up on the hill. We did a nighttime hike to it this year when it was all lit up, so that was really fun too.
Oh,
So one time my mom led the hike and got lost, so we don't send her out anymore.
Oh,
along.
shoot.
Thankfully not without walkie-talkies and cell signal. Yeah.
I was giving the next presentation. It was a little bit of a panic.
Oh,
Yeah, we're there biting our nails
scary.
and where's my mom and a quarter of the attendees? Send out search and rescue. Yeah.
Adventures are the best, though. Unexpected adventures, I think, are the
Yeah.
most memorable and just the best.
I mean,
Love
and
it.
here we are years later still laughing about it.
Yep.
So they serve a purpose. But that kind of gives you the lay of the land geographically, I guess. And then in terms of what a typical day looks like, because we're women and we want to know what to expect at retreat. We provide you with all of your meals during the day, and then around mealtime, we have presentation time, and we do have a set curriculum, like Tristin was talking about, that we go through year after year after year with women. And we have that set up with the new attendee in mind. What does the new attendee need to know? She needs to be reminded that she is crazy loved by God, that she has an important role to play in his story, and that he wants to play an important role in her story. A first time attendee needs to know that there is an enemy seeking to wound her heart, and that he's been at work, and that those wounds exist, and that Jesus is the master healer who can touch those. And also, presentations helping women understand some of the ways that we show up in the world based on our humanity and our just our mortality, and what God intends for women to show up like, but in the most compassionate way. And then we try to end things with guiding women towards what God might have in store for them, what roles he might be inviting them into to play in watching out for his children, and part of being the battle, and asking women to pick up their sword and fight for the hearts of other people. And so we have 3 to 4 presentations each day, and then we really cherish what we do afterwards, which is we send the women out to journal, to prayer, to meditate on what they just learned, basically to really integrate it into their soul and not just hear it and go off to the next activity. And soon there's just a little residue left of what was learned, but rather this deeper experience with it, and asking God to reveal himself and what he has, that he wants them to know. So my journal, when I came home from retreat, it felt like this 50-page love note from God, just
Mm.
his voice to me. And I had never heard him speak to me so clearly and so directly for such an extended period of time. And so if I were to grab things in a fire, of course my kids would be first, but that journal's coming with me too, because it's such a treasure. And then we have to break up the sitting and the thinking and do some things that are lighthearted. And I mentioned what's available at the facility, and we take advantage of all of that. We're shooting guns and bow and arrows and hiking and resting and paddling and yogaing. That's a new verb. And so we just hear this great feedback of like this great balance of adventure and fun and time to connect with other women, time to just be playful as women again. We've got all of our hats off. You're not showing up as mom or wife or daughter or church leader or any of those things. You are just showing up as Emilie and Tristin and Celeste and Melanie, and you're just caring for your own heart, and you get to be carefree for a little while, and that's really great. But then you also have these presentations and this journal time that you come on Thursday and you are not the same woman on Saturday, nor will you ever be. I can mark in my life pre-retreat Celeste and post-retreat Celeste. I'm different as a mother. I'm different as a friend. I'm different as a leader. I'm different at work, and I'm a dental hygienist. Like, what does that have to do with it? Um, so that kind of combined, I guess, the mechanics and the spirituality of it. But for each person, we also ask them to be careful with their expectations, because they could come expecting to have the experience that Emilie had or Tristin had and start to compare their journey to somebody else's and be disappointed that God isn't showing up in the same way in their story or in their weekend. And the thing that we've noticed, and my mom and I feel this way, all of the team feels this way, that this isn't our retreat. This is 120% God's retreat, and He has allowed us to be stewards of it. And so God shows up for each individual woman in whatever way He knows their heart is ready for Him to show up. So for some people, their relationship with God has been strained and it's tenuous. And if He were to make a quick approach into their life, it would spook them and they would back off. And He understands that. So He shows up uniquely for them. For other people, He knows that He's got to come in swift and He's got to come in loud. And what's amazing is that at this 3-day retreat with 100 women, we can see God show up 100 different ways. And it's totally personalized to that little girl that He loves so much.
I think one of the things that women also treasure, women who come and do this, they treasure unplugging from the world, unplugging from everything, their daily responsibilities, from the voices of the world, from responsibilities from people tugging on their heartstrings or their mind or their financial strings, all the things that people on the outside tug at. And if they truly come and unplug for 3 days, there is a rest and a renewal that comes into a woman's, not just her heart, but her entire soul, her mind, her body, her heart, everything. That renewal, once she has experienced it, then she can go back into her everyday life and in small measures continue to unplug from the world. Maybe it's only 5 minutes that she gets to unplug in a day, or maybe it's a part of a day. But whatever it is, she learns that disconnecting from the world and reconnecting to God is something that is just so restorative for a woman and something that she needs. I would
love
say
it.
desperately, needs desperately.
Oh gosh. Yes, I have that in my notes actually to also mention. Because I think that is a really important piece of it. When I brought my mom and my sister the last time that I went, and my mom was really worried about the unplugging. And I was like, I promise you, it will be worth it. Like we're both, my mom and I are realtors together, and we're partners, and so sometimes we do have to be available to our clients. And so I'm like, we'll just set it up. We'll have our assistant cover us. We'll have a couple agents on standby, and it was so worth it. And I think even she, she's like the ultimate, doesn't want to risk anything with a client or anything like that. I think none of us regretted that. And I'm so glad that you hit on the personal aspect of it, Celeste, because it is such a personal thing. You can go and connect with other women and get to know other women. And that's a perk of it, I think, as well. But I think it's always different. Like the first time, I've only been twice, but the first time that I went, I really just needed to be me and God. Like that's just what I needed. I was not in a great place, and that's what it was. Like it was absolutely, I went with Tristin. It was just the two of us, and I think she knew exactly what I needed, and she knew that I needed it to just be us. And she gave me the space that I needed to just be on my own with God, and it was life-changing. It was totally life-changing, and the time to reflect and meditate and pray and connect was so valuable. And then the next time I went, I connected with more of the women. I was just ready, and I was in the place to be able to do that.
There are a few things that we've been very intentional about in Heart of a Woman. And one of those being that we are not therapy. We are not self-disclosure in any way. In fact, we have the women sign an agreement at the beginning that they will not do that they will keep their lives, their experiences between them and God. They can get to know other women, but this isn't the place to, as my boss would say, verbal vomit or spew all of the hard things that are going on in your life. The only people that share are the presenters. And we do so very carefully and very, very prayerfully. So that's one of the things that we are absolutely not therapy or disclosure in any way. We want Heart of a Woman to be this totally safe place where women can come and explore all of that with God. The other thing that we've been very intentional about is being a non-denominational space. We never ask a woman what faith background she comes from or is affiliated with, and we never disclose that either. It doesn't mean that people don't share with us, but that is something that isn't asked. And we teach principles that are common to all women of Christian faith, and do not teach doctrines that are individual or specific to any particular faith. We want women to feel absolutely safe in coming wherever they are. We just want to create this space where God can meet them where they are and as they are with what they need at that particular time. A couple of years ago,
I was just
go
going to
ahead.
add to that sometimes we hear the comment that women are nervous to go to a women's conference because they're afraid they're going to hear the things that they should be doing. And one of our presenters and executive team members, Christy, explained it as doing high knees. That sometimes as gospel women, it's care for your neighbor, care for your family, care for your spouse, care for your home, make meals for everybody, read your scriptures, say your prayers, like all the things. And it feels like we're like doing high knees and we're like all panting. And then sometimes we go to a women's function and then there's more that we should do. And so then it's, hey, why don't you juggle while you're doing your high knees? And it becomes this hustling, and that translates into our relationship with God. Like, if this is what he wants in the church, then he must be disappointed in me if I'm not doing these things. And then we run up against this feeling of shame. And we know that there are people that are leaving organized religion because of this like shaming feeling that they're experiencing. And so at retreat, we do not tell you anything else you should be doing. We do not tell you how you're coming up short. That is far from our minds. Rather, we're asking you to believe that God loves you where you are, as you are, and that love transforms, not our actions. That if we can focus on the love of God and fully receiving that into our hearts, that everything else falls into place. And that if we can release the anchors that keep our ship from sailing to Him, then once again, everything falls into place. So now that I've like fully accepted this love of God, loving my neighbor becomes so much easier because it comes from this place of, hey, I've been loved radically by God and I've been changed by it. And I want you to feel in my presence what I feel in His. And then I want to point you to Him. It comes from that place naturally. And I want to be in God's word because I just love God so much because He loves me so much. And so I just want to hang out with Him today. And this is how I hang out with Him. And totally, it just comes from this place of natural desire to sit closer to this being who loves us so completely and undeservedly. And and so we just take all of the shoulds out of the way and focus just on relationship.
One of my friends that grew up in my neighbor, I mean, she was the mom of one of my friends in our neighborhood. And she always used to say, Melanie, you should not should on yourself.
I've heard that too. I love it.
I think at retreat we put women in a space where they don't should on themselves.
Yes. I really love exploring other religions and learning things from other people, from different perspectives and ideas and possibilities, opening my mind to different possibilities. And so when I saw that you were non-denominational, and I was so intrigued by that. It's so different than I think here in Utah, it's more unusual to find something like that. And so that was exciting to me right off the bat. And then getting there and having the worship be a little bit different, and um, it was so freeing to me to not have to fit into this specific line or expectation, but to just kind of be me, and be me with God, and not have to worry about, oh, am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? And it's true, we are fed so many things that we're supposed to be doing, or we should be doing, or we could be doing. That it's so nice to be free of that, and to see people for who they are. Like that, we have all of these beautiful women surrounding us. And I actually loved, one of you said, these little girls. Like, that kind of made me want to cry when you said that. Like, it immediately evoked an emotion in me, because, sorry, we are all little girls just seeking for approval from our heavenly parents, and connection with each other, and connection with our heavenly parents. And so I think that's such a beautiful sentiment, or a beautiful way to describe how we feel up there. That's kind of how I feel up there. I feel like a little girl, because I can, like, dig deep down and just be the raw, and not worry about the rest of the world. So
A couple of years ago, a woman came who was totally, and I have to say this, totally different than anyone we had ever had come to retreat. She came to us straight out of a residential drug treatment program,
wow.
and she walked in dressed, you know, totally differently, and tattooed all over her body and pierced all over her body. And she wrote in her evaluation that she walked in and she looked around that room and she said, I am not like any of these women. What am I doing here? And by the end of retreat, she said, I am like all of these women. And that
Oh.
is still so touching to me. And she's come back again a couple of times, and it's beautiful to see how God is guiding her path and where he's taking her, and the beautiful things that are coming into her life. Not easy things. Our experience at retreat does not make our life easier. It just makes it more God-filled. And so it's richer, and we have strength that we might not have had if we hadn't had this experience.
Definitely. My sister and I interviewed an imam from the Muslim church,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't believe in, like, a hierarchy in their leadership. And he said something that stood out to me. He said, the man in the back with the tattoos, and maybe he's homeless or whatever, may be closer to God than I am. And I'm just put on this pedestal because of the things I'm preaching, but he could be closer to God, and that's what really matters.
I love that you talked a little bit about the difference in worship. Um, when Celeste came to retreat, she saw a mother that was totally different than the mother that she was raised with. I was a pretty uptight mom. I just wanted all things good for my children. And
Uh-huh.
so I was uptight. I would say I was a little controlling. The word that we've come up with in the family for my pre-retreat life was religion. I was religion. And then she came and I introduced worship music to the women. And there's her mother up on the stage praising Jesus in a different way than she had ever seen. And it just
Yeah,
it just
one of
about
the
sent
big
her off her
shockers of
chair. But that's the beautiful thing, is that
yeah. And it's funny
I
that
love
well,
it. I love
I
it.
mean, in
and
Utah
so
we
I
don't
just
listen to a lot of worship music at our, predominant faith and with our hands raised, but up there we do. And in any other state, I think that would be like pretty normal for people. But we do use music a lot because 3 minutes of a song can speak to the soul in a different way than an hour of presenting. There's something about that combination. And there are so many amazing Christian musicians that are totally guided to write music just for me and just for you. And so we're really prayerful about what music we choose. For every one song we pick, there's 20 we had to leave behind that we loved. And so we really try to let
Mhm.
God write the music of retreat and speak to the women through music. And on day one, they're a little bit nervous. And on day three, we can't get anyone to calm down and sit in their chairs. So it's awesome.
I
No,
love that part of it. Yeah. One thing I didn't expect that was kind of surprising to me, but so valuable, was the discussion about men, or kind of the presentation about men, and kind of helping us to see men a little bit differently and help us to make our connections a little stronger, or get through some of the things that we struggle with men in our lives. And I like that it wasn't specified to just your husband, because not everybody's married. And also, I may not have an issue with my husband. And actually, at the time, I was having an issue with my birth father. And so it was so helpful to be given some tools to kind of help to see their perspectives, and help to see how we kind of mesh together. And also, it made me want my husband to go to the men's retreat, because I'm like, I want you to understand me a little better now, which he has not yet, but maybe someday. He has to go with someone. If someone will go with him, then maybe he'll go. He'll go, but one of his friends. Um, anyway, can you expound on that and just kind of, yeah, explain to us how that came about
Start
and what
from the
that's
beginning.
like?
Okay, and then you add
okay,
on
you go ahead.
whatever I miss. Um, Years
Okay.
ago, when we did that all call to the women and asked alumni if they would be interested in helping, we had a meeting and there was a comment made, and it has stood out in my mind for a long time. Can we not have a man be there doing our audio visual? And it was this desire to cut men out because men had been the source of wounding in this woman's life. Father had been, spouse had been, child had been. And so it was this multi generational wounding from men. And it was interesting that she mentioned that, because we do this presentation on trying to understand the heart of men through the lens of a loving father. And what happens in our world is that we're pit against each other. Women are the enemy to men and their happiness,
Mm.
and men are the enemy to women and their happiness. And there's good reason that we've had feminism crop up. We needed more equality. And so that's not so much the issue, it's the issue that our enemy has placed in our minds that we are enemies with our male
Hmm.
counterparts, and that it's their fault that we're hurting. And that depends on your circumstances and your story. Being wounded by a birth father, the messages carried with that are so deep to a child. I'm raising an adopted little girl, and she has the hardest time loving herself because she wasn't loved enough by a birth father to keep. And so there's real
Oh.
stories there of real hurt. But what we seek to do is to give
Mhm.
God's truth and God's light to this story, that we are God's little girls and men are God's little boys. And just like we are wounded and we are hurting, and sometimes our hurtful behavior comes from a place of our own woundedness, our own insecurity, our own fill in the blank, that God's little boys have a story that's worth compassion as well. And in a conversation with another one of our presenters and team members, whose spouse has struggled with sexual addiction her whole life, she said that at first, when she started doing work to heal from the sexual addiction, that there was just this animosity towards men that she was experiencing. But once she got into group therapy and heard the men's stories, she told me that there's not an addict that she does not have compassion for. And so when our anger
Wow.
towards each other and looking at each other as the enemy disappears, then we can look at who's the real enemy. And then we can look at who's the real God. And our energy and our focus isn't on each other and pitting against each other and the hurt that you caused me and the hurt that I caused you, but rather it's compassion for your story, compassion for my story, and let's work together to fight the real enemy, which is Satan, and to focus on the real Almighty, which is God. And that is the last place that Satan wants us to be. He wants us wrapped up in other battles so that we can't see the larger battle. And so, truly, the goal is to understand a man's heart enough that we can have compassion for them and then move forward in our lives as a compassionate counterpart. It doesn't mean that we live without boundaries. It doesn't mean we put up with abuse. It doesn't mean any of that, but rather that we just show up in a more supportive, compassionate role. What would you add, Mom?
I would just add that one of the powerful experiences that the women will have at retreat is at the end of that particular presentation. Our AV person, who is always up to this point has been male, comes to the stage and offers an apology to the women that she may never hear from the man or men in her life who has wounded her. And hearing that apology from another male, feeling that compassion back. Here we've asked her to give compassion and understanding. But when a male stands there and gives compassion and understanding in return, almost as if he is Heavenly Father speaking to them, these are my sons and they have hurt you. And I'm offering this apology, this and asking forgiveness. It's just such a powerful and beautiful experience. And so many women have mentioned to us that that was one of the most healing experiences that they had at retreat.
Hmm. I remember being up there, so I don't remember mention of men kind of picturing them as little boys, but there must have been some kind of mention of that because I remember sitting around the table with some of the other women and just saying, like, I love the idea of picturing my husband as that little boy. And I actually, like, I got home and I pulled out some pictures of him and I was like, okay, like, he is just a little boy. And sometimes he just needs to be comforted. And sometimes he just needs to be understood. And sometimes he just needs for me to understand that he doesn't mean anything bad by the things that he says that are sometimes hurtful. you know like it was really powerful thing to me to start picturing my husband that way. And I'm actually glad that we're bringing this up again because I'm gonna go back to that. I think I forgot. But because it is, and I'm just a little girl and he's just a little boy and we're just trying to figure out life. And at any minute in our life, I think that can be a valuable tool to just kind of picture them as the little kid that they are inside. So I'm glad that you hit on that. But yeah, and it was so powerful. I loved that part too, Melanie, where the man stood up and apologized for all of the things, because there is a lot of damage, unfortunately, that can be done.
We have to give the men's, they're our brother retreat, and they do amazing work as well. And many individuals who have been able to recover from addiction that has been intense and running rampant in their life. And then of course all of the other struggles, whether they lived fatherless or have struggled with shame, so many different things that plague the hearts of our men, that once again that love of God, once it seeps into the soul, it pushes out those other things. And I can just think of one man whose experience was going up so shame filled because of his choices. And that when he truly felt that God loved him, even where he was and as he was, his life transformed. And it truly has. One of the joys that we get to have at Heart of a Woman, having run it for many years, we can see women come up on Thursday and there's a darkness and a heaviness about themselves. And
Hmm.
you can tell that they are battle weary and that maybe they've been believing the messages fed to them by the enemy and are feeling quite anchored down by all of that. And I can remember one person in particular, but we see this happen over and over again, that it was gradual light in her countenance, day one to day two, to this radiant brightness on day three, because she was reminded who she was and whose she was, and the immensity of the power that God loves her with. And then also inviting the master healer into those places that had been wounded and maybe even infected and festering for a while, and that he was able to do what only Jesus can do, which is offer healing beyond understanding. And we watched that with her, and we have watched that with so many different women, that even though this retreat is hard to put on, it's exhausting. The self doubt that we get hammered with leading up to retreat. And every time I go out to present, I, who am I to do this? And what do I think I'm doing? And um, my stomach's in knots. And then you go out and you see what happens to the women, and you sign up to do it again and again, because it is so remarkable and it is so worth it. And we have the utmost respect for women who may not have that quick of a transformational experience. I can think of one team member. We asked the women to um, go to God and say, if you were to give me a nickname that's just between you and me, what would this nickname be? And for me, for my mom, the name came instantaneously. And multiple names have revealed themselves over the years. And sometimes, if I want a name, I just ask him for his stamp of approval for the name that I've given myself. And he's usually pretty cool with it. And, but we have a team member that she had been coming probably over 5 years, 6 years, and just staying in this wrestle with God and allowing him to reveal that when the time was right. And so we have women that come and have both an instant experience or a long drawn out experience with God. And for all of them, it is worth the fight to get up there and to do that.
I think it's so, like I said, it's life changing, and it definitely is. But there's a reason that we repeat a lot of things over and over again. And I definitely I really wanted to do this interview with
Yeah.
you guys because I want to find more people. Like Tristan and I have gone a couple times, but I think it's important for other women to experience it as well. However, on a selfish note, like I feel like I need that rejuvenation every once in a while, and the reminder. So I'm like talking to you, I'm like, hey, I'm going to register. But and hope that you just continue to do more or make it bigger or something, because I don't want to prohibit others from being able to experience it, but I also need it myself. A couple
Can
more,
I speak?
like, over and
Can
over.
I speak? Can
Yeah,
I
yeah,
speak
yeah.
to that just a little bit?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, we believe this in the core of our beings, that invitation to attend retreat, whether it's your first time or your 15th time, it is an invitation from God.
Yeah.
And He makes space. He's made space for us to do it 2 times a year. He's made space for Big Canyon to expand. And so instead of 32 women, we can have 120 at the max.
Wow.
He's making space. He's having women across the country reach out to us and say, can we do something in our area? We just know that if you've received an invitation, if God is speaking to somebody and saying, please come be with me for this weekend, that you need to come. You say, yes, I will come. I will invest this time with you. I will sit with you on a mountaintop and commune with you. I will learn who I am and I will learn who you are. And that's the beauty of it. So if you're feeling that invitation, just say yes and come. And we will wrap our arms around you and we will love you and care for you and speak words of encouragement to you for the weekend. That's the beautiful job that we have.
Or be the person that invites someone else to come along with you. And I think that is helpful to have a friend, to have somebody. It was very helpful to me to have Tristin with me. She was brave and did it on her own the first time, but I don't know if I would have been. So that is helpful. If if you're a listener and you're interested, definitely go and take a friend and experience it together. I rationalized it by saying like it's cheaper than a 3-day trip with with a nice hotel and and food. You have to pay food anyway. Your food is covered, your lodging is covered, and then therapy as well. That's
Even though it isn't therapy.
that's not intended.
Somebody calls it.
Yeah.
But it feels
Yeah.
like therapy. Healing of your soul is priceless.
One of our attendees said, I didn't know I was coming for God therapy, but he was better than any
That's a
office
great
I've
way.
ever
Yes,
been in.
Great way to put it.
totally.
Yeah.
That is a great way. Yes, God therapy. It is God therapy. I love it. Okay, so I'm glad
Yeah.
we're laughing because I wanted to end on a lighter note and ask you. We're asking all of our guests this season to share either an embarrassing moment. It'd be fun to hear an embarrassing moment from one of your retreats, or maybe a fun fact about yourselves that your attendees might not know, or both.
Okay. So here's a fun fact about us
Yeah.
for retreat. We always have a pre-retreat nightmare. One of us does, or all of us do. And that's how we know that we're getting really close to retreat and that it's on our mind a lot. And my mom has had a nightmare that the kitchen served frozen Uncrustables. And that tells you how much a good meal means to her, that that would be her nightmare. Mine was that I got up and nobody wanted to listen to what I said, and the AV guy said, "Well, just stroke my lucky hair." And he had this like beautiful long Jesus hair, and I stroked his Jesus hair, and then everything was better. I don't know. I kind of feel like every presentation is kind of like an embarrassing moment. We always do something in there that we wish was different or better. Yeah, but I can I share the funny story that you wanted to share, Mom?
I'll share it. So I already alluded to the fact that I was kind of a serious, rigid mom. And my kids aren't used to me telling jokes or teasing or pulling pranks. That just isn't a thing that happens very often. So one night up at retreat, I was on the bottom bunk and Celeste was at the top bunk. And she had stayed out in the event barn really late working on a presentation. So she came into the room about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm a really light sleeper and I heard her come in. And so I just planned that when she was climbing up into the bunk, I would just reach up and yank her leg. And so I did that. And she's like, now's the time you're going to pull a prank at me on me.
We did.
I think we woke
We
up the
did.
whole room.
And they all
It was
laughed
so
because they knew how out of character it was as well. And it scared me so much. And so kind of the joke is if you act like you're not going to be a prankster for 63 years, then you can really pull one on on somebody. Yeah.
I
Yes.
love that it was planned too,
She's
that you're like,
laying
okay, when
there
she
all
comes back.
nervous.
I'm just laying in bed
Yeah.
thinking about what can I do.
Yes.
And it was
That
fun.
is so cute. I'm surprised that you're not
Yeah.
normally a prankster and that you were more strict. You seem so fun and yeah, kind of. I mean, you're also very good at being serious and meaningful.
Right.
So I don't know.
My children will tell you In fact, I remember the night, after we had maybe done one retreat and we were sitting around the table, all of the children, were already married and gone, except for our youngest son. And we were sitting around the table and they said, Mom, you are so different now. We are really
Mm.
liking this. We're really liking the heart of a woman, Mom. Um,
Oh,
and I think they liked and loved me before, but
yes, of course.
but I would say that heart of a woman it's just transformed my heart so much.
There's definitely something special about watching people change in a positive way and surprise you. My mom always says, I love when people surprise me. Like you expect something and something else comes out. Like that's the funnest thing, you know? My mom's actually the opposite. She's so fun. And actually at the retreat, I took her and I was like, Mom, there's quiet moments. You have to be quiet. Like, she could not wrap her mind around that either. The phone thing and the have to be quiet thing, she's like, I don't know if I can do it. And she struggled. She struggled. I multiple times, Mom, remember, this is quiet. There's something about connecting spiritually, but also connecting on a fun level too. So I love that you have the adventure part as well as the spiritual. Yeah, and the connecting. I know that there were pranks that happened in that room. I'm trying to I know, but it's not as unusual for us, so I can't remember what it was. But there were a couple things. I can't even remember what I'm gonna call my sister and ask her. Oh, it was water bottles. What did we do? Oh, we put them, we emptied them and then put them in the bed. And then when my mom
Yeah.
came and sat down, it was just a loud noise. It's kind of lame. It's kind of lame, okay?
I think it's funny.
Thought it was cooler.
So
Especially if you were to lay down and
it's okay.
crunch.
Yeah.
I think that's all it was. It was just silly.
Yeah.
But that's fun too, to be silly. Okay, so let's just end by you explain to us when your next retreats are. You mentioned something about Georgia, which is so exciting. And tell us how people can register and any other information that our listeners might need.
Yes. So our website is theheartofawoman.net. And that's where you go to find out all of the information about our next events and how to register for those events. You can also see a little overview of the weekend and what it's like and meet the presenters and see a video of women who are having that experience. So that's a great place to go. We also have an Instagram and a Facebook that Celeste is in charge of. So I'm going to let her talk about that. And if you'll also talk about when registration for our October 10th through 12th, everybody
Yes.
come. October 10th is my birthday.
Yay.
I am so
Oh,
often there for my birthday. So come and celebrate. Happy birthday with Melanie. It would be so fun.
you've got to do something special. Are you?
We always
Do you
do
have
a
something
cake.
special planned?
Yeah.
For my
That's
birthday.
our special
Yeah.
thing.
Retreat. Retreat is
Okay.
the special thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We
I
will.
love it.
My husband said the first time retreat was on my birthday. He said, don't you want to be with me on your birthday? I said, I love you and we can celebrate my birthday anytime, but I would really rather be with the girls for my birthday. Thank
On
you
your
very much.
birthday. What can be better? Mm.
Yeah,
What better gift is
Yeah.
that? That's just like,
Yes. Uh, yes. So
true.
we're
True.
we're on social
Okay,
media
Celeste, hit
too
us with the Instagram
now,
stuff.
just starting. And I mean, Emily, you've got more experience with this. So we've had to swallow the tough pill that people have to be on social media and have digital presence. And so we're breaking into that right now, and I don't totally know what I'm doing, but we're trying to give people behind the scenes looks at what retreat is like so that they have fewer questions and less fear of the unknown. And then we're going to have inspirational messages there as well, and little snippets from team members and other attendees about things that they learned at retreat so that people can start to hear the message of retreat, what we're saying up there that's so impactful, and start to, I don't know, be touched by the truths that we really like to focus on. So our for Instagram and for Facebook, it's the Heart of a Woman. And you can find us both places there. And then our next retreat, like my mom said in October, our registration opens up for that June 1st. And we have sold out many times within 24 to 48 hours. And so we definitely recommend for people
Wow.
to plan ahead. But where this is going to be airing in June or July, it is good to know too that we have increased our capacity. And so we have room for everyone. And one time there was 90 people on the wait list, so we decided to open up a second event. And we did two events in 1 week. So one way or another, we are going to get your cute selves into retreat and let you have this experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah. There's so now we have increased space. So this is so timely, Emilie, that you're saying that you want to get the word out to more women to come because the
Yes.
space is there to be able
And
to come.
Yay.
yes,
That's
I
so
was gonna
exciting. Tell us about
mention
Georgia.
that too. So um
Oh, sorry.
there's kind of this like buzz in the air that we can feel that God's getting ready to do things. That he's let us get retreat to a place where it's like a pretty well-oiled machine, and then is saying, we're about to go out of your comfort zone. So buckle your belts because here we go. But raise your hands on the ride if you want. So in February of March in 2025, we're expanding into Georgia so that we can reach those that are in the South that are wanting to come. And our retreat is starting to get more representation from a variety of states. And so we expect the expansion to just continue from there. We have people from New York coming all the way to California. So coast to coast, we'll have attendance. And maybe one day we'll go to Australia.
We've had women from Alaska, Hawaii, and New Zealand come to
Wow.
retreat.
That is so exciting.
But
So
in
exciting.
Georgia, we're just in the process now of selecting dates and selecting a facility. Just kind of, we've got places that we're negotiating with, and so we're just in that process.
And will it
we'll
be the
post
same
it.
presenters? Sorry. Will it be the
Yeah,
same presenters or?
it will be a smaller group. We will take a small group with us. So, yeah.
So great. So great. I love that you're expanding and following your hearts to where God takes you. I served a mission, and I feel like every time we were comfortable, as soon as we were comfortable, we were made to be uncomfortable throughout my entire mission. That's kind of a theme probably of most LDS missions, but I see that in my life too. And whenever there's an uncomfortable moment, I'm like, yes, I'm going to embrace this because I know there's so much growth to be had from it. So I'm glad you're embracing the uncomfortable and providing more opportunities for more women, because there are, all of God's children deserve opportunities like this. So I love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of That's Church. We truly appreciate your support and hope you found today's discussion as inspiring as we did. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at That's Church Podcast to stay connected with all our latest updates, future episodes, and great clips. We also want to remind you to register for the upcoming Heart of a Woman retreat happening October 10th to the 12th. Visit their website at theheartofawoman.net to find videos, information, and to meet the presenters. You can also register directly on the site. This retreat is an incredible experience, and spots sell out within 24 to 48 hours generally, so don't wait. There are still about 40 spots left thanks to the increased space this year, so hurry and jump on that. Plus, we have an exclusive discount code just for our listeners. Use the code That'sChurch24 to get $50 off your registration. But hurry, this offer is only available for the next 14 days starting today. If finances are a concern, don't worry. Heart of a Woman has generous donors who provide scholarship options. Applying for a scholarship is quick and easy. Just head to theheartofawoman.net, scroll down a little, and click the scholarship application button under the second registration button. Remember, the discount code again is That'sChurch24 for $50 off. Follow Heart of a Woman Retreat on Instagram and Facebook at The Heart of a Woman for updates. We hope to see you at the retreat. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.